Welcome back to the program. Great pleasure right now. I've been looking forward to talking to this man for quite a while. I grew up watching the show. It was on up in New York, the Galloping Gourmet Show, and we're joined now by the great Graham Kerr. There's a brand new cookbook out. It's called Day by Day Gourmet Cookbook. And Graham, a real pleasure to finally get a chance to talk to you. How are you?
Thank you so much. And I got to tell you something, Doug. Really, Doug. You are the very first interview I will do about this book.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're well on it. Well done.
Well, that's great. I kind of look around the internet and I said, well, I'd like to talk to Graham Kerr, and I found your website, and I'm happy that your new book is just kind of coinciding with that. So I'm glad we were the first.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
As I mentioned in the intro, I grew up in New York, and I used to watch. My mom kind of had it on during the summertime, and there was a show on at 1 o'clock every day. I think it was there called The Galloping Gourmet, and I used to watch you every day during the summertime. It was a fun show.
It used to be sandwiched between As the World Turns and Secrets.
That's right.
How can a guy lose?
That was really one of the earlier cooking shows. I guess you and Julia Child probably pioneered that, didn't you?
Yep. Yes, I think we did. And dear Julia, I miss her.
Yeah, great lady.
We became good friends. So.
But you had kind of a unique twist to it. I just looking back, remembering the show, and I don't know if you had cue cards or not, but you had kind of a running monologue, which was very entertaining, and in the meantime, you just kind of be cooking on the side and give tips there. You had wonderful stories on that show. That must have been a lot of fun for you to do that.
It's all as a result of my wife, Trina, because she was the producer, got 2 Emmy nominations, TV Producer of the Year for it, and she said, you are the most unutterably boring man in the entire world, and you need to do something about that, and jump over a chair, tell some jokes. And I said, good heavens, I couldn't do that. I was such a foodie that I thought that this would be obscene to the average foodie, which I think it might have been. But what it did do was it spread the idea of having fun and getting to a stove and putting food in front of people and enjoying each other. And I'm so glad about that. I wish that could happen today. It seems to be less and less possible. It
really is. It's a shame what's happened to particularly daytime TV. I'm glad I work during the day. The times that you're off, you watch some of that stuff that's on. It's terrible.
Well, I guess in those days we used to have a wonderful budget. And nowadays, because of the proliferation of TV stations and everything else, the more channels you have, it's great for the viewer to have choice. But unfortunately, the budgets overall go down, and therefore you have less substance.
Yeah, the quality, unfortunately, has deteriorated there. But now, you shot that in Canada, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We found out that it was it was really interesting because there was a tariff, or a certain amount was allowed into Britain and other countries around the world of American product. So, but there was no stipulation about any restriction for Canadian product. So we did in Canada, and we wound up in 38 countries around the world.
Yeah, it was hugely successful. And how did you come up with the name Galloping Gourmet? Was that something just for the show, or previous to that?
I had a friend who's a wine writer by the name of Len Evans, and he's gone on to own a huge vineyard and be very successful in Australia. And this guy and I were, bright, relatively young men, with wonderfully caring wives who allowed us to get on a plane and fly around the world in 30 days on Qantas for the first time that they did a round-the-world trip. And they gave us 2 first-class seats, and they paid for as many restaurants as we could get into in 30 days. And so I think we got into 130 restaurants. And all they wanted to do was to have us write a book about it. And they almost had to pour us off the plane in the end. It was a wonderful trip, and we wrote a fantastic book. We were wondering what on earth to call it. And wound up with, it was either going to be Gluttons or Gourmets. We chose the Gourmet.
One thing
that was the name, and so I just took the name on singular from that experience.
One thing that kind of stands out for me in the show, you always, the staple, I guess, of your cooking was clarified butter. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard of that before until you started talking about it.
I've learned, of course, a few things since then, and that is that as you grow older, tend to get wiser, and you also have a tendency to see the coastline. You know, being young is like being out at sea. You know, there are no rocks, and when you're getting a little older, then you begin to see the coastline and the surf. And in my case, my wife Trina had a stroke and a heart attack and diabetes and hypertension, all of which I think were exacerbated by the way that we were living. And so you either die of things like that, or you decide you're going to change the parameters a bit. And so that's what we did. We didn't want to give up the great flavors that we'd understood of going 28 times around the world. You can get to learn some good stuff. And so we didn't want to lose that, but at the same time, we didn't want to lose life. So what do you do? And so we developed something called TACT, T-A-C-T, which is for taste, aroma, color, and texture. Those are the things we love most about food, actually. You know, we translated into different things. I would like a big steak and, you know, a baked potato in his jacket and bacon and these sort of things. But actually what we love is a range of sensual experiences, all the tastes, salt, sweet, sour, bitter, and picante, they call it. And then all the aromas and the colors and the textures, it all plays in together. So what I did, I just made a list of everything that Trina loved to eat and listed it under taste, aroma, color, and texture. And then rebuilt the way that she ate so that she had all the things she liked to eat, but a little less of the things that didn't like her, and more of the things she did. And we've never eaten better in our entire lives. So this new book, this day-by-day gourmet, you know, that's the qualification. You can't be a gourmet from day to day unless there are some major modifications made. And so that's what we've done. We've just simply found out what the modifications are and written a book about it now.
It really is, just looking through it, I myself had a lot of food allergies as a kid, so I couldn't eat a lot of the things that other people did, and your book kind of goes into that a little bit, but a lot of things that, you know, are fattening or maybe not too great for you, if you remove them, if you cook it a different way, you don't really miss those ingredients, do you?
And that extraordinary noise you just heard is the barley that has just cooked. Just to let you know that we're doing this over the kitchen stove. Sorry about the noise.
No, that's fine.
Do you know what? What we've tried to do is if you can imagine a book called Cooking Between a Rock and a Hard Place, that would be what this book would be about. Quite a few people have the heart attack and the stroke and the high cholesterol and the other things which exacerbate that, and overweight, of course, which does too. And then other people have the diabetes problem, and that's growing apace. You know, we are getting to be in the midst of a terrifying potential tsunami of sickness coming on the diabetes level, where about a third of the children who will be born in the year 2000 will actually wind up with diabetes, unless we do something radical to stop it, and or unless there's a smashing pill which works, you know, for everybody. And we all sort of live in hope for that, and then put off making the behavioral change. But what we're trying to do is say, okay, what about a book which steered a course between those two pillars of problems, those two rocky shores? We were to find a clear channel between the two. And so this is what that book is. It will work for people who have diabetes, it will work for people who have heart disease, and who want to lower weight and lower cholesterol. So it's, and I didn't want to call it a diet. I believe people love to eat, and they should. And so this is how the